I'm going to share with you a circle alignment that I found involving Merida, Mexico as the beginning and ending place. My name is Michelle Gibson. From the research I have done, I believe there was a worldwide civilization that was aligned with itself according to sacred geometry on a flower of life pattern, with the same characteristics that appear to be bringing the heavens to earth and aligning earth with the heavens. The process of doing this research has opened up for me an awareness of a suppressed, advanced, ancient, worldwide maritime civilization which existed up until relatively recent times and is the missing positive timeline of humanity. Throughout my videos, I go into depth regarding what I believe about this civilization, what I see as the Moorish, M-U-U-R-I-S-H, Moorish, M-O-O-R-I-S-H, Israelite Empire, what happened to it, and provide compelling evidence as to why I believe this. I found this star tetrahedron in early 2016 on a map that had been given to me. I had started to notice that major cities lined up in lines in North America. I found a familiar figure of sacred geometry when I literally started connecting them. I believe it is the terminus of a worldwide grid. I extended these lines out and wrote down the places and cities that lined up in linear or circular fashion. I have gotten an amazing tour of the world of places I had never heard of, with remarkable similarities across countries. I'm going to share with you the circular alignment I found tracking the alignment emanating from Merida, located at the southern apex of this star tetrahedron. Merida is the capital and largest city in the Mexican state of Yucatan. Some historians consider Merida to be the oldest continuously occupied city in the Americas. It has one of the largest historic center districts in the Americas after Mexico City and Havana, Cuba. The first photo shown here is the Merida Natural History Museum, for comparison with the museum in Merida of the similar use of columns and heavy masonry in particular in the architectural style of different countries. This is the Prigorja Museum in Zagreb, Croatia, with its second floor double columns and similar style roof in the background to the museum in Merida. Here's a historic blue building in Merido's Centro Historic District. Except for the pastel blue and creative designs of the building, the columns we see here and in the previous pictures remind me of what could be termed in our present reality as classical Greco-Roman architecture. Here is a comparison of the same street corner style architecture of hotels that I have seen all over the world. This one is in Merida. This is the Plaza Hotel in Roswell, New Mexico. And this, the Alberta Hotel in Edmonton, Alberta. This whole area in the Yucatan Peninsula is filled with major Mayan sites, including Chichen Itza, Coba, Tulum, Uxmal, just to name a few. I counted 29 ruin sites on this map of the Yucatan, and I have found Merida connected to many Earth alignments. The Chichen Itza complex is the best known. This is the Kukulkan Pyramid, elected as one of the 7 new wonders of the world in 2007. Every year at the time of the spring and fall equinox, on both sides of the north stairway of what is called the Castle of Chichen Itza, there is a solar projection of a serpent of light consisting of 7 inverted triangles of light. There are 2 serpent heads carved into the bottom of the stairway, completing the serpent imagery. The Caracal Observatory is part of this temple complex. 20 sightlines of 29 astronomical events, equinoxes, solstices, eclipses, etc., can be found here, and that is what is known about since a portion of the observatory is missing. Next shown are the ruins at Coba. Archaeologists believe that Coba is one of the most important ruin sites on the Yucatan Peninsula. This is the main pyramid, called Nohac Mol. This site was believed to have a different design and purpose from other Mayan sites. It is surrounded by 2 lagoons. The Coba site remains largely unexcavated. Tulum is called a pre-Columbian walled city that served as a port for Coba. Tulum is built on a bluff, which is a cover-up code word for the handiwork of the ancient civilization, facing the rising sun, and is the only Mayan temple complex built on a Caribbean beach, and is surrounded on 3 sides by a wall. It was the primary location for the Mayas' extensive trade network, both on land and sea. It was also thought to be a religious center. Uxmal is also considered to be one of the most important and beautiful Mayan sites. This is called the Temple of the Magicians. It is the tallest structure in the complex. I became aware of Karl Monk's work in 2010. He wrote a book entitled The Code and published a series of videos based on the book. I watched the videos and learned about his work introducing an ancient pyramid system in which monuments around the world encode their exact positions with respect to longitude, latitude, and each other. Uxmal was one of several of the pyramids he decoded with respect to this pyramid system. Next, the alignment crosses Key West, Florida. Key West is the southernmost city in the contiguous United States and the westernmost island connected by highway in the Florida Keys. Note the shaped and protected harbor, which is just like what is seen at other islands worldwide. More examples of this later. Dry Tortugas National Park, a star fort on an island called Fort Jefferson, lies further west of Key West and is only accessible by ferry or boat. Fort Jefferson is the largest brick masonry structure in the United States, made with over 16 million bricks, and said to have been built between 1845 and 1861. Star forts are found around the world. While they were turned into military structures, there are many indications that the original intent of these beautiful structures was not for military use or defensive in nature, and perhaps instead had some kind of energy function. These represent a sample of many, many examples. Karlovac in Croatia, the Josefov Fortress in the Czech Republic, Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Maryland, Kastellet in Copenhagen, Denmark, Fort Carré in France, and the Castle of Kuressaare on the island of Saaremaa in Estonia. Does this similarity in design features in places traditionally not associated with each other make sense in the historical narrative we have been given? This next set of photos compares the rocky shoreline of Key West on the left with the rocky shoreline of Tulum and the Yucatan on the right. This is Fort Zachary Taylor, and it is near the southern tip of Key West. It is also a star fort. Here is a comparison of a construction feature at Fort Zachary Taylor at Key West, Florida, and at the Fort de la Bastille in Grenoble, France. Certainly not identical, but there is a geometric effect that looks the same to me with the perfect symmetry of the arches. Next on to Miami, Florida on this circle alignment. Several years before I started to pull all of this information together, I saw a video on YouTube about the discovery of what became known as the Miami Circle. It was discovered in 1998 in downtown Miami when the building complex sitting on top of it was torn down. In 2002, it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 2009, it was declared a National Historic Landmark. Radiocarbon dating of burnt wood specimens found at the site are said to have yielded an age of 1800 to 2000 years old. Here is a very interesting decipherment of the Miami Circle by the stars, done by Andis Collins. In this set of photos, on the left is the old post office and consulate in Miami, and on the right is the El Paso State National Bank in El Paso, Texas. The heavy masonry of both buildings really strikes me, as well as the buildings being situated at the same angles on their respective street corners. This next set is a comparison of the original Miami Herald building, which was demolished in 2015, and a mansion in Merida, Mexico. Many historic buildings have suffered a similar fate as the Miami Herald building. I find most of the similarities I am seeing in historic photos of places because many of the older buildings are simply not there anymore. The Miami Herald building that was torn down was described as built to be nearly indestructible. In the article, I read about its demolition. So these places are not being torn down because of inherent structural weaknesses, as is the reason oftentimes given. This was the first Church of Christ Scientist in Miami, which was sold to a commercial developer in 2013, with plans approved in 2015 to add a garage structure to the top and a 38-story residential tower next to it. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1989. Quite a monumental building. It looks more like the classical Greco-Roman architecture we learned about in history class than a modern church building. Next on the alignment, we come to Grand Bahama Island. Grand Bahama is the northernmost of the Bahama Islands, 52 miles or 84 kilometers off the coast from Palm Beach, Florida. West End is the capital of Grand Bahama Island. This is now part of the marina here, but my belief is that this is an artificially shaped harbor of the advanced ancient civilization that I have seen countless examples of around the world. It was a maritime civilization. We have not been taught about it, so collectively we just assume harbors like this were constructed in recent times. This is a picture of the shaped harbor and what looks to be a canal at Omis Beach in Croatia. And this is Male, the capital of the Maldives, located in the Arabian Sea of the Indian Ocean. It sits on a major Earth alignment. As you can see, there are protected shaped harbors all around the island. Before I move on to Freeport on the Grand Bahama Island, this is a picture of Dead Man's Reef on Bahama Beach at West End. I take particular notice of the presence of the block-shaped rocks here, which I believe are ancient masonry. Same thing here at the Gold Rock Beach of Lucayan National Park, a 40-acre park on the southern shore of Grand Bahama Island near Freetown. Lucayan National Park has one of the longest charted underwater cave systems in the world. Freeport is the main city of Grand Bahama, which besides an airport, has a commercial ship harbor. Here are more pictures of the coast and beaches on the Grand Bahama Island near Freetown to give you a feel for exactly how rocky it is. Grand Bahama Island also has a canal system. Here is the view from Casuarina Bridge of the Grand Lucayan Waterway. This is a picture of the south inlet of the Grand Lucayan Waterway on the coast at Lucaya, near Freetown. And for comparison, this is Venice, Florida, on the opposite side of Florida on the Gulf of Mexico. Also for comparison, an aerial view of the canal system on Grand Bahama Island, compared with views of Venice, Florida. On to Bermuda, where the alignment crosses through the capital of the British Overseas Territory, Hamilton. This is a picture of the Bermuda Parliament building on the left, and a view taken of Santa Cruz de Tenerife in the Canary Islands, showing a similarity of tower construction, arches, and window designs in both locations on different sides of the Atlantic Ocean. This map shows the location of the Royal Navy dockyards in Bermuda. We are told it was built by the British Royal Navy in 1795. It was once home to Britain's largest naval base outside of the United Kingdom until it closed permanently as a naval base in 1995. Now it is the home of the Clock Tower Mall, hosting a variety of shops, boutiques, and restaurants. So these 200-plus-year-old buildings must be in extraordinarily good condition to still be in use today. Modern use department stores with clock towers is not unique in the world. The top photo is the Wako department store building in the Ginza shopping district of Tokyo, with a clock tower and heavy masonry, and a version of that street corner layout design I keep seeing on the bottom, like the original Miami Herald building on the left, and the historic Alberta Hotel in Edmonton, Alberta on the right. Another notable clock tower mall is in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. This complex is called the Makkah Royal Clock Tower Hotel and includes a 5-story shopping mall in addition to hotel and residential rooms, and has many other uses as well. Compare the overall look of the Makkah Royal Clock Tower Hotel with this historic hotel, the Minx Adams Building in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma has historic, beautifully ornate architecture like this. This is the Hotel Hamilton, said to have been built in 1851 and destroyed by fire in 1955. Before leaving Bermuda, let's take a look at Fort Hamilton in Hamilton. It is situated above the city and is said to have been built in 1870. It looks to have a pentagonal shape. Interestingly, they have cannon on platforms at only 3 of the 5 main points of the fort, resting upon what looks to be a more recently built concrete platform, while there is nothing in 2 of the 5 points. The fort has beautiful colonnades, seemingly holding up air, and a nice wall in the background about the same height. From Bermuda, the alignment goes through the Hekla volcano in Iceland. Hekla is a stratovolcano that is one of the most active in Iceland. It is a legendary gate of hell in medieval literature. This alignment will go through other volcanoes and volcanic regions as we follow it. Over 20 eruptions have occurred since 840 AD. It was last active from February 26 to March 8th of 2000. Next, the alignment goes through Akureyri, Iceland. Akureyri is in northern Iceland and Iceland's second largest urban area. These days, it is an important port and fishing area. It has an ice-free harbor and relatively mild climate. This is the historic city center of Akureyri. The world's most northerly 18-hole golf course is located in Akureyri. I believe golf courses are involved in the cover-up of mound sites. This is the Lutheran Church of Akureyri. What I find most of interest, besides the twin towers, is the stair-stepped mound shape it sits on top of. For comparison of similarity in appearance, this is an aerial photo of Cahokia Mounds in Illinois, directly across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri. This location in the region of Akureyri is called Dimmuborgir. It is described as various rock formations and volcanic caves reminiscent of an ancient collapsed citadel. At any rate, what this reminded me of is this picture from the Garden of the Gods in Colorado, and this one from Amarumuru, near Lake Titicaca in Peru. This is a photo of the Godafoss waterfalls near Akureyri. It is considered to be one of the most spectacular waterfalls in Iceland. This alignment leaves Iceland and from there crosses over the far northeastern tip of Greenland. Greenland is an autonomous constituent country within the Kingdom of Denmark. While it is on the North American side of the Atlantic, it has long been politically and culturally tied to Europe, even though the majority of its inhabitants are Inuit Eskimos, who are said to be descended from the Thule people of Greenland. And while you might see this as just a random rock on the right, I see it as a cut and shaped stone, just like this one in my front yard. Cut and shaped stones like these are literally everywhere, and you don't see them until you realize they are there. So if you start looking for them, you'll see them. It doesn't matter where you are on Earth. They are in our yards, parks, beside roadways, you name it. Station Nord is a Danish military and scientific station in northeastern Greenland where the alignment crosses. It is the second northernmost permanent settlement in the world and the base of the Northeast Greenland National Park. The station has about 35 buildings. I selected this photo because of the earthwork feature below the buildings. I don't think the earthworks were built by the military. I think the earthworks were already there, and they just built on top of them. I believe this because when I first started to really wake up to the sophisticated and geometric earthworks in the environment all around me, that buildings were built on top of earthworks, including energy-related storage facilities. And tank farms were built on top of earthworks or flat-topped mounds. I do not believe these are the result of modern engineering. I believe the earthworks came from an ancient, highly advanced engineering technology that has an energy component that I am sure certain people in the energy industry are well aware of. This photo is of Thule Air Force Base on the northwestern side of Greenland on a different alignment. There is an interesting flat-top structure that juts into the water in the background. That looks remarkably similar to this flat-top structure, which is Cotimbo in Peru, known for its stone towers at the top called chulpas, and this one, an example of many like it, in Arizona. Also in the area around Thule Air Force Base, you find these earthworks in the middle of the photo. The stones in the left foreground look interesting to me, but not enough is shown for me to say much more than stones pictured have straight edges and corners. As I indicated, Station Nord is the base of the Northeast Greenland National Park, the largest national park in the world, encompassing 375,000 square miles or 971,246 square kilometers of northeastern Greenland. It is set up as a biosphere reserve. I realized when I first started cracking the code that covers all of this up that for as much of the ancient civilization that is destroyed, neglected, or incorporated in unprotected places, much is preserved intact in federal, state, and local parks. So, for example, this photo taken in Greenland National Park shows pointed peaks and a field with big boulders in the field in the foreground. And here's another photo taken in Greenland National Park with an unusually pointed pyramidal stone feature. Compared with these photos of Baffin Island's Ayudik National Park with the pointy pyramidal mountains, including Mount Thor in the center, as well as large boulder fields on Baffin Island. Just going to take a moment before moving on to compare Mount Thor on Baffin Island in the national park, called the world's steepest, tallest cliff on the left, with the Matterhorn in the Alps straddling Switzerland and Italy on the right. The alignment crosses this region through Pearyland, a peninsula within the Greenland National Park boundaries, which contains the most northerly ice-free region in the world. This is Bronland Fjord in Pearyland. Pearyland is also the world's northernmost land and tundra. Tundra is defined as a level or rolling treeless plain characteristic of Arctic and subantarctic regions, a permanently frozen subsoil, and its vegetation consisting of lichens, mosses, herbs, and dwarf shrubs. There's another random cut and shaped rock in the foreground. Pearyland includes Cape Morris Jessup, which is the northernmost point of mainland Greenland, and 442 miles or 711 kilometers from the geographic North Pole. Robert Peary reached the Cape in 1900, believing it to be the northernmost point of land in the world, but it lies slightly to the south of Kaffeklubben, or Coffee Club Island, which is the northernmost point of continental land on the Earth. Before we head over the North Pole into Siberia, I have a couple of more things to add about Greenland. The first is Hyperborea, a lost ancient land considered to have been in the general vicinity of Greenland. It was a fabulous world of eternal spring, located in the far north, beyond the home of the north wind. Its people were giants, with blessed and long lives untouched by war, hard work, old age, and disease. It is called a myth, but I wonder about that. The second thing I would like to bring forward is the Thule Society. This was a German occult secret society founded initially as a study group in Munich after World War I. It was the organization that sponsored the German Workers' Party, which became the Nazi Party under Hitler. They believed there was a connection to the origins of the Aryan race with Hyperborea. Regardless of whether or not there was a connection, these occult beliefs and practices factor heavily into what has been happening on Earth in its most recent history. I am saying there was actually a lot of historical interest in this landmass that we think of nothing more than as a big freezer, and of little consequence in the history that we are taught about our timeline. From here, the alignment passes over, or close to, the geographic North Pole. What we are told is that the North Pole is where the Earth's axis of rotation meets its surface and is its northernmost point at 90 degrees north. The North Pole is in the middle of the Arctic Ocean and is described as being on waters covered by drifting sea ice and not a landmass. The alignment then enters Siberia across the East Siberian Sea. Siberia is historically a part of Russia, but is an extensive geographical region also known as North Asia. While not directly on the alignment I'm following, I'm going to include a few words about Wrangel Island. Wrangel Island is in the Arctic Ocean between the East Siberian Sea and the Chukchi Sea. It is administered by the Russian Federation and is a protected nature sanctuary and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This perfectly curved and shaped shoreline on Wrangel Island is called Cape Blossom and is compared with the Chesil Beach Causeway on Portland Island off the coast of England. And this is Cape Litka on the western coast of Wrangel Island on the top, compared with a similar land feature in the Galapagos Island in the middle, and near Yalta on the Crimean Peninsula in the Black Sea on the bottom. The at the time Soviet government established a settlement in 1926 on Wrangel Island called Ushakovskoye for displaced Chukchi and Russian families, totaling about 60 people. This settlement was abandoned for all intents and purposes in 1994, which is a 68-year period. Compare the quality of what are called church ruins in Ushakovskoye with its ornate design features, arched windows, and onion dome, with the quality of the abandoned residences of this settlement. Also, compare the design qualities of the church ruins on Wrangel Island with this historic building in Trenton, New Jersey, and the Civic Building in Jerome, Arizona. Moving back to the alignment, it goes through Pevek, Siberia, which is the northernmost city in Russia. Pevek is a port city and administrative center for a district of the Chukotka region. In 2015, it was recorded as having a population of 4,721. Notice what appears to be shaped harbors in this photo, and the boulder field next to the shoreline outside of town. Pevek was a gulag site during the 1940s and 1950s, where prisoners mined uranium. I do think there is significance to the pyramidal shape in the background. These next two pictures were taken in the same general area around Pevek in the Chukotka region when I searched for Pevek Gulag, natural formations, or man-made. So from this region in Siberia, the alignment crosses over the Koryak Range. This is the second largest mountain range in Siberia. The Koryak Mountains are located south of the Anadyr River and northeast of Kamchatka Peninsula. Two rivers have their source in the Koryak Range. One is the main river. It is one of the major tributaries of the Anadyr River. This is the only picture I could find of the main river. I would like to point out that snaky as shaped rivers are a signature of the advanced ancient civilization around the world. The other is the Velakaya River. It flows northeastward from the Koryak Range through the Anadyr estuary into the Bering Sea at the Gulf of Anadyr. The alignment enters the Bering Sea in the Russian Far East and crosses the near islands of Atu, Agatu, and Shemya. The near islands are the westernmost of the Aleutian Islands, located close to the international dateline and closer to Russia than mainland Alaska. Shemya Island is the home of Erickson Air Force Base and is currently the only inhabited near island. Attu had a U.S. Coast Guard base until 2010. Here are some views from around Shemya. An aerial view from a different angle showing the interesting outlines and shape of the whole island from directly above. A nicely shaped shoreline. Blocky rocks on the beach of Shemya, compared with those on the beach of the East Siberian Sea at Pevek on the northern coast of Siberia, and those on the Gold Rock Beach on Grand Bahama Island. And what looks curiously like ancient masonry in the lower right foreground of this nicely flat-topped cliff edge right up next to the coast of Shemya. Also what looks like green turf coming down over the edge looks kind of strange, almost carpet or blanket-like. And those rocks on the ground below, near the water, look like red rocks to me, but I can't get a close-up of them that clearly shows this. Red sandstone is another building material of the advanced ancient civilization. Here are just a few of many, many examples. It's just not called masonry. People assume it's natural because they haven't been told anything else. Red sandstone at Lake Arcadia in Edmond, Oklahoma. At Boiling Springs State Park outside of Woodward, Oklahoma. In Cornville, Arizona, near Sedona. At Amaro Muru, near Lake Titicaca in Peru. And the red rocks you see here that are part of this roadway bridge at Twin Lakes in Bethel, Oklahoma. This is a photograph of Agatu Island taken from Shemya. Agatu is one of the largest uninhabited islands in the Aleutians. It has a land area of 85,558 square miles, or 221.9 kilometers squared. There is not a lot written about this uninhabited island in the Bering Sea. You can find written information from the Audubon Society about its 7 large seabird colonies of different kinds of birds, numbering in total population an estimated 66,000 birds. This is a Kittlet murrelet, a rare species found on Agatu. It is also described as a volcanic island with rugged fjords and high cliffs on the coast. So let's take a closer look at the rugged cliffs and high fjords of the coast of Agatu Island and see what we find. Here's a feature that looks like the ruins of an ancient wall. It reminds me of Hell's Gate at Possum Kingdom State Park, a little ways west of Fort Worth, Texas. Shown here are huge wall-like structures surrounded by the waters of the lake that exists there now, compared with how it looked before the lake was created. I know for a fact the creation of artificial lakes is one of the ways they use to hide ancient infrastructure, as there are many examples of this once you know what the deal is. Hiding an advanced ancient civilization that was global in plain sight, and creating a water supply at the same time. 2 birds with 1 stone. Here's Hell's Gate from another angle, showing more evidence that this is a built structure. This is another feature found on Agatu's coast. It immediately brought to mind this feature at Mount Magazine State Park in Paris, Arkansas. This is part of Cameron's Bluff, and going to this place in person in the fall of 2015 marked the beginning of my putting all of this together by cracking the cover-up code words of how language was being used to hide things by leading us to believe things like this are natural features. A bluff, meaning a high cliff, is a bluff, meaning a false display in order to deceive someone. This waterfall on Agatu, one of the westernmost of the Aleutian Islands in the Bering Sea, on the left, reminds me of the Madhabkunda waterfall on the right, one of the highest waterfalls in Bangladesh in South Asia. Attu Island is the largest of the near island group, and so far west it is in the eastern hemisphere and the westernmost point of land relative to Alaska. The island is protected as one of the National Parks Trust territories and has few visitors as it is restricted. Attu Island is the site of the only land battle in North America during World War II. The Japanese Army bombed and occupied Attu Island, as well as Agatu and Kiska Islands, in June of 1942. It was a strategic location for both Japanese and the American forces. American forces retook the islands during the Aleutian Campaign, starting on May 11th of 1943, and lasted several weeks. There was an operational U.S. naval station, then Coast Guard station at Casco Cove on Attu from June of 1943 until August of 2010. The airfield located there can still be used for emergency landings. These are the original buildings of the station, with its blocky rocks in the foreground. And this is the Coast Guard station that was closed 8 years ago, located beside a shaped shoreline. Moving along the alignment in a southerly direction in the Pacific Ocean from the near islands, I'm going to make mention of what are actually considered the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, Midway and Cura atolls, the most northerly coral atolls in the world. While not directly on the alignment, these places are definitely in the general vicinity, and I have found World War II battle sites all over the Earth's grid lines. In the same coordinated campaign in June of 1942 that led to the Japanese occupation of Attu and Agatu for almost a year, the Battle of Midway brought about the sinking of 4 Japanese warships and the downing of hundreds of Japanese planes in the Battle of Midway. It was a turning point for the Allied forces of the war in the Pacific. The alignment did cross Necker Island, also part of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. Necker Island is a relatively small island with over 30 stone temples and shrines. These have been studied by archaeoastronomy experts for astronomical alignments. This is a shrine on Necker Island, and a sketch of a temple platform there. The center of the island is located at almost exactly the latitude of the Tropic of Cancer in the year 1000. From Necker, the alignment crosses the Hawaiian island of Kauai. It is called the Garden Isle and is considered the oldest of the main Hawaiian islands. British explorer Captain James Cook was said to have been the first European to arrive at Waimea Bay on Kauai in 1778. This is a painting of Hawaiian King Kamehameha I. He was the founder and first ruler of the Kingdom of Hawaii, which originated in 1795, but became official when the whole Hawaiian archipelago became unified in 1810. And this was King Kalakaua, the last elected monarch of the Kingdom of Hawaii. He lost his absolute power in 1887 when he was forced by Hawaiian elites to accept a constitution that provided for a constitutional government. The kingdom was overthrown in 1893 under Queen Liliuokalani, and the Republic of Hawaii was annexed as a territory by the United States in 1898. Let's do a quick tour of some interesting places on Kauai. I noticed on the map a place called the Old Russian Fort. Sounded kind of suspicious to me, so I looked it up, and this is what I found. All of these are on the grounds of the Russian Fort Elizabeth State Historical Park. It is on the coast of Kauai, southeast of the city of Waimea. Here are some more red rocks. And this is the Old Russian Fort itself. It looks very much like a star fort to me. This is Waimea Canyon, called the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. The canyon has red soil, and notice the shaped red rock in the foreground. I have found that canyon is a cover-up code word also, just like bluff. Here's another view of the canyon. It is 10 miles or 16 kilometers long and up to 3,000 feet or 914 meters deep, and yet another waterfall similar to the one we saw earlier on Agatu Island. Before leaving Kauai, just wanted to show you some pictures of the Napali coast on the northwestern shore of Kauai. Interesting pointed peaks and a stone formation in the foreground there on the coast that kind of looks like what we saw on the coast of Agatu Island. Next we come to Oahu, known as the gathering place because the most people live here, and it is the third largest Hawaiian island. Honolulu is the state's capital and largest city. Honolulu is the largest city we have been to on this alignment since we left Miami. Let's take a look at the historic architecture of the city, like this street corner architecture in Honolulu in the Merchant Street Historic District, and this one in Honolulu's Chinatown. Compare the street corner architecture in Honolulu with these pictured from around the world. The Bankers Trust Building in Detroit, Michigan, this historic photo of a building in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, this building in Juarez, Mexico, on the Mexico-Texas border, this one in Kherson, Ukraine, near the Black Sea, another one in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, in Atlantic Canada, and this one in Punta Arenas, Chile, near Tierra del Fuego at the tip of South America. Here's the monumental architecture of the Central Intermediate School on Oahu. This is the historic Palama Fire Station in Honolulu, compared with historic fire stations with similar architectural features in wide and varied places like this fire station in Jerome, Arizona, which the photo of the one in Hawaii reminded me of, and that led me to look at fire stations for the first time, like this one in New Zealand. Another one in Birmingham, England, and Los Angeles, California, to name just a few, to give you a sample of many examples. There is clearly an architectural similarity going on with regards to fire stations across oceans and countries. Next is Pearl Harbor, site of the historic Japanese bombing on December 7th of 1942. Check out the geometrically shaped harbor here. And here as well in these two photos of Honolulu Harbor on the top, and the same geometric shapes at Freeport Harbor on Grand Bahama Island. The Kualoa sugar mill ruins are found on Oahu. Sugar mill ruins? I started searching for ruins, for example, in different states and state parks, and sugar mill ruins kept coming up, like these in the United States at New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and the McIntosh Sugar Mill in St. Mary's, Georgia. And I extended the search for sugar mill ruins and found these at Vieques Playa Grande in Puerto Rico. And the top photo of what is called a sugar mill in Belize, with this tree growing out of it. How long does it take a tree to grow like that out of a building? It immediately reminded me very much of pictures I have seen of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, with tree and roots all firmly rooted in ancient temples, like the one shown in the bottom photo. The alignment crosses the island of Molokai, also known as the Friendly Island, because the aloha spirit is said to flourish here. I saw this particular map of Molokai that drew my attention to the resemblance of the shape of the island to an upside-down fish. In looking at images on Molokai, I found this shaped shoreline on the coast where the Molokai Ranch is on the top. On the bottom, I have provided for comparison a photo of St. Paul Island, one of the French subantarctic islands in the southern Indian Ocean. Next is a comparison of the double curves of Halawa Bay on Molokai on the top, and on the bottom, we see the double curves of Casco Cove on the island of Attu. This particular photo shows a high waterfall on Molokai, and in the left foreground, there is a noteworthy geometric-looking triangle with sharp edges. Another high waterfall on Molokai flows from what appears to be a shaped and smoothed watercourse. And what about that rocky beach with small to large stones? We accept these things as natural because we have been given no other explanation for their existence. Maui is next. The second largest Hawaiian island is Maui, known as the Valley Island, because of the Great Valley that lies between its two major volcanoes, Pu'ukukui and Haleakala. These are views of Haleakala National Park. It was established in 1961 with the said purpose of preserving the outstanding features of the Haleakala crater. Compare the similar-looking appearances between the Ohio Gulch Waterfalls and Bridge in Haleakala National Park on Maui with the Multnomah Falls and Bridge in Oregon, and the Gooseberry Falls and Bridge in Minnesota on the top. Then compare the above style of the bridges at the waterfalls with the style of the bridge seen here on the bottom in the city of Constantine in northeastern Algeria near the Mediterranean Sea. Here are some similar-looking waterfalls in different places, starting with Nemo Falls, located in the Ko-Olao Forest Reserve on Maui. Natural Falls State Park in West Siloam Springs, Oklahoma, near the border with Arkansas. These waterfalls in the Plitvice National Park in Croatia, and these in Garahone National Park on La Gomera, one of the Canary Islands. This is the Io Valley State Park on Maui. There we find an interesting stone formation called the Io Needle, next to what looks like a sheer stone wall. Next on the alignment is the Big Island of Hawaii, considered the youngest, and is the largest island in the Hawaiian island chain. This is Green Sand Beach on the island of Hawaii, adjacent to the southernmost tip of the United States, compared with Baja Beach in Korčula, Croatia. As a matter of fact, I can find many more beaches that look like this. Here are additional examples of basically the same configuration. On the top is Myrtos Beach in Kefalonia, Greece, and on the bottom is Grama Bay in Albania on the Balkan Peninsula. Next is a comparison of a view of Hilo, the largest settlement on the island of Hawaii, and Hilo Bay with the canal feature in the foreground, and a better view of the long and narrow jetty in Hilo Bay that looks similar to the long narrow jetty found at Playa de las Terrasitas on the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands. The Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island of Hawaii is on the alignment and is inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage Site list. Mauna Loa is found here, historically considered to be the largest volcano on Earth. Eruptions here are typically fluid and non-explosive. Its neighbor, Kilauea Volcano, however, is one of the world's most active volcanoes, and well known for its violent eruptions. From the Hawaiian Islands, the alignment crosses over the Pacific Ocean to the Revillagigedo Islands, a group of 4 volcanic islands known for their unique ecosystem. They lie southwest of the southern tip of Baja California. They were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016, and in 2017, Mexico declared them a national park and marine reserve. Here are some interesting photos of sites you see in the Revillagigedo Islands. Isla Clarion is the westernmost and most remote of these islands, and the second largest. It is the location of a small 9-man military garrison, and home to a large bird population, some rabbits and feral sheep, and a few reptile species. This is an arch off the coast of Clarion. Nothing to see here though, right? Isla Socorro is the largest island. It is considered a shield volcano, with a recent eruption in 1993. This island has a small naval station, including families, near the southernmost point of the island. There are some interesting stone features here on Isla Socorro, like the Arch of Cabo Pierce, and the Grand Arch at the entrance to the Blue Lagoon on Isla Socorro. San Benedicto is the third largest of the Revillagigedo Islands. This island, with its very interesting shape, is not inhabited by people. The Barcena volcano on the island most recently erupted in 1952. While at the time of the eruption, the existing flora and fauna of the island was wiped out, it became once again the home of a large number of seabirds. This is Isla Roca Partida, the smallest of the 4 Revillagigedo Islands, and a favorite spot of divers. Also, what looks to be a version of the same land feature in the Revillagigedo Islands on the top that is also found near Yalta on the Crimean Peninsula in the Black Sea in the middle, and the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador on the northwestern side of South America on the bottom. Next on the alignment, we come to the Mexican mainland at Manzanillo, located on the Pacific Ocean in the Mexican state of Colima, which includes the Revillagigedo Islands. It is Mexico's busiest port that handles cargo for the Mexico City area. It is interesting to note that Manzanillo has a squared-off beachhead like the ones shown previously. Moving on from here, we go to Colima, the capital city of the Mexican state of Colima. This is the Basilica Minor Cathedral in Colima, and its construction was said to have been started in 1527. The appearance of the twin towers and onion domes reminded me of The twin towers and onion domes of the Frauenkirche in Munich in Bavaria in Germany, with its construction said to have been started in 1468, looks very sophisticated to me. How did they build these monumental and ornate places? With ladders and pulleys? The building technology they would have needed to accomplish this did not exist in the historical narrative we have been given. This building has very distinctive arches in the Colimo Centro. The arches are an example of a five-lobed Moorish arch. Here is a comparison with another type of Moorish arch in Alcazar, Seville, Spain. This is Lake Chapala on the alignment, Mexico's largest freshwater lake. Note the square ends on both ends of the lake in this aerial photo of it. The block-shaped rocks at the edge of the lake and the round hill at the edge of the lake. Could there be something interesting underneath the trees and soil? There could be. Stay tuned. Also, the alignment crosses Colimo volcano, one of the most active volcanoes in North America. In recent years, there have been frequent temporary evacuations due to threatening volcanic activity. From here, the alignment goes through Mexico City, another World Heritage Site, the capital city of Mexico, and North America's largest city. I couldn't help but notice the similarity in design features in the central part of the buildings between the Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City on the top and the CEC Bank in Bucharest, Romania on the bottom. This structure in Mexico City is called the Moorish Kiosk. The person who gets the credit for it was a Mexican engineer named Jose Ramon Ibarola. He was said to have designed it to represent Mexico in the New Orleans International Expo in 1884 and 1885. We are told it was transported there, as well as to the St. Louis, Missouri Fair in 1904, and then subsequently came back to Mexico. By what means could they have transported this huge, highly ornate structure twice in the late 1800s and early 1900s? Now, here's the thing. The Moors do not even get credit for their own architecture because they weren't supposed to be there. They were removed from our collective memory. They get credit for 700 years in Spain in the historical narrative we have been given, and that is it. Their amazing accomplishments are falsely attributed all over the world. This is a photo of a tree and soil-covered mound at Teotihuacan, outside of Mexico City, that was taken in 1832. These next two photos were taken in 1905, a few years prior to the beginning of the first major excavations of the site. This is what Teotihuacan looks like with the ground cover removed. It is known as the place where men became gods. It is designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was a complex of temples and pyramids with running water and a sewer system. The alignment crosses over Mount Popocatépetl. Located near Mexico City, it is one of Mexico's most active volcanoes. Next, we arrive on the alignment in Xalapa, Mexico. Xalapa is the capital of the Mexican state of Veracruz. Olmecs were the indigenous civilization of Xalapa. This is a colossal Olmec head. There are approximately 17 existing colossal heads made from a single block of basalt that range in weight somewhere between 20 and 40 tons. So who were they, and how'd they do it? These are photos of a park in Xalapa with stunning hydrology and design features. And the same concept of the stair-step water flow into the fountain in the park, pictured in the last photo, is found within the city of Xalapa itself, as well as the elegant steps pictured here. Moving on the alignment from Xalapa, we return to where we started in Merida, on the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. This whole circle alignment also appears to be on a ring of fire, with major volcanoes found all along the way. Are the similarities in architecture and the similarity of features we are taught to call natural simply random and coincidental? Or that somehow building design plans were available and accessible worldwide during a time that was not supposed to have technology and mobility, according to what we have been taught in our world history books? Or was there a very beautiful and sophisticated, ancient, advanced global civilization living on Earth in higher consciousness, with master masons who built ornate infrastructure, and who were also master hydrologists, astronomers, and mathematicians, who worked with the elements of earth, air, water, fire, and ether, and harnessed earth energies to terraform the earth and create our planetary and consciousness grid that existed up until relatively recent times that we have not been told about. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I have come to the conclusion that the Moors and the Israelites were one and the same. Christine Rohn and John Michel wrote a book called 12 Tribe Nations, Sacred Number, and the Golden Age. Among other things, they followed the Apollo-St. Michael alignment across countries and continents, all the way to Jerusalem in Israel. They discuss records and traditions of whole nations being divided into 12 tribes and 12 regions, each corresponding to one of the 12 signs of the zodiac and to one of the 12 months of the year, all formed around a sacred center. It stands to reason that these people would apply the same concepts of harmony, balance, beauty, sacred geometry, and aligning heaven and earth to building their communities and themselves that they applied to building all of the infrastructure of the earth. So what if we're talking about an arrangement like what you see pictured here, occurring in a flower of life pattern, from macro to micro, covering the surface of the earth? I firmly believe there would be no mysteries in history if we had been taught the true history of Earth. Why would there be such a massive effort to hide it from us if they truly wanted us to know about it? All that are involved in the hiding of it simply don't want us to know the truth. They deliberately gave us a false historical narrative and want us divided by race and religion for the purposes of power and control over all of us.